Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to episode number 13 of the Houston Astros franchise here in MLB The Show 20. Today we'll be jumping into some minor league action between our AA Corpus Christi and AAA Round Rock Express. But we'll start off with AA. They're going to be playing the Sod Poodles, and we're taking a look at some of the top prospects for the Sod Poodles. They are the AA affiliate of the Padres. We just saw CJ Abrams, the number 5 overall pick number 5 prospect in baseball. Luis Campusano, the number 48 prospect in baseball. And they also have Ryan Weathers, who we will not see today, but he is the number 30 overall prospect in baseball. Corpus Christi Hooks sit at 17 and 16. We will see Brett Adcock on the mound for them, the former Michigan Wolverine. He's been with Corpus Christi since 2018, and in that span he is 7 and 12 with a 5.23 ERA. So we hope to see him improve on that. But very first batter he sees will be CJ Abrams, who we just mentioned. And he's going to hit this ball over the right field fence for a leadoff home run to start the ball game. That is the second home run so far for CJ Abrams this year, and it puts the Sod Poodles up 1-0. He has a chance to really make some noise here in baseball. He was picked number 6 overall last year, and he has a bright future ahead of him. Now we go to the top of the second with Luis Torrens at the plate, and he's going to shoot this one over the head of our first baseman and put this ball into right field for a 1-out double. Next up, we will see CJ Abrams once again, 2-2 count to him, and he rifles this ball deep to left field. Brian De La Cruz cannot get to it in time and takes a tumble out there in left field. Luis Torrens will round and come all the way home off of the triple. And just take a look at Brian De La Cruz, who just took a tumble out there, and he's actually going to have to come out of the game for this one with a shoulder injury. Thankfully, it's not serious, but Corey Julks will have to come in the game and replace him for the rest of it. And next up, we have Eduardo Oliveira, and he's going to rocket this one to the shortstop, who kind of takes his time fielding it and is thrown safe at first base. They're actually going to call that an RBI single, but that base runner is not going to matter as Brett Adcock picks him off to in the top of the second. Top of the fourth now, Luis Torrens pops up to left field, and Brett Adcock kind of settles down after a rocky first couple innings and gets out of the third and fourth harmless. On the mound for the Sod Poodles will be Miguel Diaz, former Rule Pipe pick traded to San Diego. They've had big plans for him. I don't know why I can't talk. 63 overall seed potential, but it's never really materialized. We're going to jump into the bottom of the fourth here for Christie. Got a walk for the first batter. We see Pena, and then Ross Adolph is going to fly this one deep to center field. It's caught on the warning track, but the runner on second will be able to tag to third. So runners on first and third here with 1 out for Osvaldo Durant. And he's going to shoot this one down the line at third base. 1 run will score. Pena, who is on first, is going to round third, try to come home, and he's going to make it home safely. So a double, 2 RBI double there for Durant. Next batter, Chucky Robinson, is going to shoot this one past the first baseman. So another hit for him, and then the right fielder has some trouble with it out there. So Durant's going to come around and score. Now we have a 3-3 ball game. Corey Julks up next is not going to be able to pull the trigger, and that will be the last batter we see Diaz face. Top of the sixth now, Hudson Heat with 2 out is going to shoot this one to left field, who the left fielder Julks gets to it, but it's kind of lackadaisical in the infield, and that is going to be a double for Hudson Head, and that's going to bring in Blake Taylor for the Corpus Christi Hooks, who's had a solid season so far, 7 2/3 innings, 1 and a 17 ERA, and he gets out of the 6th inning with no harm given thanks to a ground out by Hudson Potts. Jumping into the bottom of the 6th now, Jordan Guerrero came in for the 5th and 6th for the Sod Poodles. 7 games so far, 2.60 ERA. He's going to go up against Chucky Robinson here with 1 out, and Robinson on the first pitch he sees puts this one deep to the left center, just short of a home run, but it's going to be off the wall for a 1-out double. Next up, Jake Myers, 1-0 count to him, and he rockets a changeup to left field. That ball is going to rattle up against the wall. Chucky Robinson is going to round third and come home. So the Hooks take a 4-3 lead here in the bottom of the 6th. Then we got Corey Julks. He's going to put this one into center field, and Myers is going to round third and come home as well. So a 5-3 lead here for the Hooks in the 6th. That's going to be all the damage for the Hooks. So we go to the top of the 9th now. Kit Sheets coming in, trying to close this one out for Corpus Christi. Former Virginia Tech Hokie is a solid 8 for 10 so far this year. The first batter he sees, Hudson Potts, is going to get a lot on this ball. Deep to right field over the head of the diving right fielder Potts is going to round second base. He's going to go into third for a easy leadoff triple. So that'll put Luis Torrens at the plate here, 1-0 to him. He's the tying run. And he's going to line this one to center field. The center fielder unable to get into it in time. It eats him up. So a run is going to score on that one. So now 5-4 here for the Hooks, no outs. Abrams up next. He's going to hit this one up the middle as well. So another base hit. That puts the tying run now on second base with no outs. 2 batters later, Esteban Quiroz is going to pop this one up to center field. And that's going to be put away. So now 2 outs now with runners on first and second. Josh Mears, the last chance for romance here for the Sod Poodles. 1-0 count to Mears, and he gets a lot of contact off this one deep to left field over the head of Julks out in left field, rattles up against the wall, and not 1 but 2 runs are going to score. And now the Sod Poodles not only have erased the deficit, but now they have the lead. That's going to bring in Carlos Santa Maria, who's had a horrible season so far in AA, 19.29 ERA for him. And he is going to get out of this one, though, strike out Luis Campesino. So just like that, Jimmy Yacobonis is going to come in for the Sod Poodles. He's a perfect on the year. Former Oriole, made 7 starts last year for the Orioles, but now he is in San Diego's AA system as the closer. He gets the first line out from Frutis Nova. Next up, Jeremy Pena. He's going to line this one into the foul territory, but the first baseman is going to reel back and get this one. So now 2 outs for Ross Adolfo. He is our last hope. And 1-2 count to him. He strikes out on the high heat. So the Sod Poodles come back in the 9th and win this one, just like what we saw in the last episode for the Astros. Closers not able to get the jobs done for their respective teams, and the Sod Poodles win this one 6-5. Abrams is your player of the game. What a heartbreaking loss for our AA Corpus Christi Hooks. Seems like it's not just at the major league level where we're having a problem closing games out in the 9th inning. This is Mr. Rob, and this will be one of 2 parts in this episode where we'll be doing a live commentary, just going over the stats of what's going on with the AA team and the AAA squad you will see later. So let's jump right into it, starting with the position players. And the dude at the top of the list is Frutis Nova, hitting a solid .338 this year with 1 homer and 10 RBIs. He actually started his year out at Class A Fayetteville, but due to Alex McKenna injury, which we'll touch on in a minute, he has been called up, and he's been a very solid player, 63 potential. He's made the most of his opportunities here at AA. He can play shortstop and third base. He's got good arm strength, but his fielding's a little spotty. One thing, a theme you'll see with a couple of our players is we have some solid middle infielders, but if you think about it, between Altuve, Bregman, and Correa, there's really no room for them to go. They're all still pretty young. I think Altuve's like 30, 31, but still, he's high up in the 90s, still hitting very well. So a lot of these players you could see as trade bait later on, especially if we're making a run at the playoffs. You can see a couple of these players in exchange for a big name. But we'll move on to the next player, Scott Scheiber, who's hitting pretty solid. I'm doing this by OPS, by the way. You can't see it on the screen, but OPS is the category I have it listed at. He's hitting .277 with 5 homers. Actually, I'll scoot it over to OPS. So .850 OPS, 5 homers, 13 RBIs, 2 steals. Solid player, 57 overall C potential. He's got a solid bat. His fielding isn't the best, so he would be more of a DH. And we already have Alvarez, so another player in that regard. Next up, Ross Adolph, who we saw a little bit in that episode and who I highlighted a little bit in the first Down on the Farm episode. If you haven't checked that one out, go ahead and check that one out. That was a good episode as well. I'll put the link down in the description for that one. And while you're down in the description, hit this like and subscribe button for more MLB and franchise content. Now that plug is out the way, Ross Adolph hitting .264 on the year, 3 homers, 17 RBIs. He played a good contribution in that game we just saw. A former Toledo Rocket, 63 overall B potential, a good solid outfielder. His bat probably needs to get a little bit better before he gets to the major league level, but you could also see him at AAA really soon. He's hitting pretty solid here in AA. Next up, Alex McKenna, who's been hurt for most of the year. .327 with 6 RBIs. I think he's only played in, let's see how many games, 13 games. So he's been hurt for a good solid portion of the season. A fractured hand. He will miss another 1 to 2 months, which is unfortunate because he's a great fielder, and we'd like to see him get some more at-bats. Then we got Corey Julks, who you saw come in for the Brian De La Cruz injury earlier. De La Cruz is not hurt that long term. You see the Band-Aid down below, but it's only a couple days. He's been hitting pretty solid this year, .245, 7 RBIs. Deep potential, might have already hit his peak. Probably won't get that much better, but he's been a solid hand so far. Then we see J.J. Matijevic. I know I probably butchered that, but hitting 263 on the season, 3 homers, 20 RBIs. The former Arizona Wildcat was taken 75th overall back in 2017, and he was suspended 50 games last year due to drug violation. So he missed 50 games with the Corpus Christi Hooks last year, and I think he's starting to take a negative impact because of that. His overall is going down, his potential is going down, almost all of his stats are going down, unfortunately. But yeah, that's sorry to see for JJ, but it's good that he's been hitting the ball relatively well since then. Then we have Jeremy Pena hitting 275, 1 homer, 11 RBIs. That middle infielder, another 63 B potential, who has a future maybe at the big league level, but just like how I mentioned with Nova early on, I mean, there's a lot of a log jam out there in the middle infield spot. So if he did come out, he probably would be more of a bench utility player, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I mean, with a B potential, and he's only 22 years old, he might have better trade bait opportunity. Next, Juan Pineda, third baseman, 697 OPS, starting to get into a little bit lower on the totem pole. He's hitting 267 though, 60 overall C potential, and his overall is going up, so that's good to see. And then we have Brian De La Cruz, who you saw get hurt early in that episode, taking a tumble out in the second inning. He's hitting 225 this year, 1 homer and 13 RBIs with 2 steals. Not the best season from him. He has a 57 D potential, so I don't know how much better he's going to get. His contact is already decreasing a couple, and he really needs to work on that bat as well as a lot of things, so I'm not sure where his future will be with the squad. Then we have Osvaldo Duarte, who had that big 2 RBI double in the episode we just saw. He's hitting 250 on the year through 116 at-bats. Not much power. It's kind of a lot of people in our A's team. There's not much power down here, but he can play all over the field, infield, and outfield. So that's something to keep an eye on. It's something just nice to have in your minor league farm system. Somebody who can just play all over and play a bunch of field. He might not have a major league future, but he is a solid farm hand. Then we have Jake Myers, who is hitting 190 on the season. Not very good for him. 58 D potential. Not much really else to say about him. And then we have Gray Kessinger, who I do have something to say about him. He's the grandson of 9-time All-Star and 2-time Gold Glover Don Kessinger. He's only hitting 214 on the year. We hope for that to change. He has just 65 C potential. He's got a very good field, good contact, but not a lot of power to him. Definitely needs to work on that bat if he wants to move up in the organization, but I think he will move up. I don't know if he'll quite be a starter at the major league level, but I think he could be a solid bench hand, just like I mentioned earlier at the middle infield spots, especially since our bench right now is really struggling, as they're basically all hitting under 200. So Gray Kessinger, somebody to keep an eye out for. Then we got Chucky Robinson, who had a couple big hits in the episode we just saw, which is kind of surprising because he's only hit 167 on the year, and he's basically only a defensive catcher. He does have 50 contact stats, so I guess I shouldn't say he's just a defensive catcher, but he's got terrible vision, discipline, clutch. So don't know how much he'll progress. He is a catcher / first baseman at 24 years old. So that's him. And then the last one, Carlos Canellan. He's just a bench catcher who I called up, who got hurt. Only going to be out a couple days, but really not much to say about him. He's kind of been pretty poor so far in AA. Then we'll move on to the pitching side of things, which I'm going to categorize it by ERA. So we'll start off with a couple of the relievers you saw in this episode. Blake Taylor, who we touched on too. He's been solid so far this year. Got a 1 ERA and a .89 whip through 9 innings pitched. So not the biggest sample size, but he's been a solid left-handed, hand to have in the bullpen. If you know from the major league roster, we were definitely looking for bullpen help. So Blake Taylor, I'd like to see a bigger sample size for him, move him up, but he's played so far really good so far this year. Then we got Gabriel Valdez, same thing, 2.25 ERA through 8 innings pitched. I'd like to see a bigger sample size for him. He has a 54 D potential, so I don't know how much longer he'll keep it up, but we're definitely lacking relief pitching help. So it's good to see a couple of guys doing well in the AA. Same thing with Rolf Garcia, 2.63 ERA. This time he has 13 2/3 innings pitched, so a little bigger sample size, averaging more than a strikeout per inning with 15. 56 D potential. A lot of these guys are D potential, however, so I don't know how much they'll improve, especially with him being 25 years old. Next up, we go to our first starting pitcher in Brett Conine, who's got a 2.74 ERA so far through 46 innings pitched. Probably my favorite starting pitcher. He's on a hot streak. He was our opening day starter down here in Double A. And if you watch the episode, he pitched it really well in that episode. Former Cal State Fullerton closer, so he also closed a little bit in his college career. He will be called up by the end of this episode. If I don't show the transaction log, just know that he will be in AAA with the Round Rock Express. And I'll touch on a little later in the episode who he will be replacing. Brett Adcock, who we saw in this episode, he's pitched pretty solid so far this year. He got a little roughed up early in the game we just saw, but was able to calm it down, and he's had a pretty solid season. But he is a 59 overall D potential, and he is decreasing in a lot of categories, so not much. Don't know what he will do in his career. Then we got Sinel Perez, 3.18 ERA through 22 2/3 innings pitched. Probably more of the intriguing starting pitchers that we have down here in Double A in the long term. He has a B potential. He will be a future Double A game. We will see him. I want to see him pitch at least once this year in Double A if he's not already at Triple A by that time. And he does have a little bit of major league experience. Not good last year through 5 games. Had a 10 ERA, but was pretty solid back in 2018. He is only 22 years old, so it's good that he already has some experience to draw back on. And he's a lefty. I don't think we have a single lefty bullpen help in the organization, so maybe somebody to keep an eye on later in September when we're able to call up one relief pitcher to help out. Next up, Kent Emanuel, 3.38 ERA. So we have some solid starting pitching here in Double A. It's just our bullpen is just really struggling. He has a 59 overall D potential, and wow, his control 10, velocity 10, or 0, 10 break. Wow, I did not know those stats were that bad. That's wow, kind of blown away. Not much else to say about him, I guess, after that. 27 years old, kind of already on the decrease. So we can see that control and break potentially drop from a 10, which is not something you like to see. Nivaldo Rodriguez, another starting pitcher we have down here at Double A, another intriguing one, 62 overall B potential. Like to see some of those things go up a little bit. He was signed out of Venezuela back in 2016. So back when he was only about 18, 19 years old, he joined the organization. I'd like to see a future for him. Like to see him maybe crack the 4 or 5 spot in the rotation, maybe 3 spot. I don't know. I think Nivaldo Rodriguez could be a solid hand one day in the major league club, especially since he's so young. So that's somebody else to keep an eye out for in Double A. Now we go back to the reliever side, and Noli Paredes, 3.77 ERA through 31 innings pitched. He has a 58 D potential, and his overall is increasing. As you see, his walks per 9 has already gone up 2 so far this year, so that's good to see. Then we have Kit Sheets, who we just saw absolutely below a save in the 9th inning. 4.73 ERA, 57 D potential, lefty. That episode really hurt to see him just get absolutely smoked in the 9th inning, but we'll see what happens with him in the future. Then we have Christian Javier, another starting pitcher who's just kind of down here, 36 innings pitched, 4.75 ERA. Not, obviously, he's probably the biggest starting pitcher outlier so far, 59 D potential. He is young with 22, however, out of the Dominican Republic, so maybe he has some time to turn it around and get his stats a little better, but I don't know much about Christian Javier's future in the organization. Then we have Carson LaRue, who's only pitched 2 2/3 innings and has gotten absolutely smoked in those 2 2/3 innings pitched, 13.50 ERA. He was called up relatively recently from a single A as well to just fill out some depth, and he will probably go back down to single A once our injuries have healed. Then we have Carlos Santabarria, who we saw come in after Kit Sheets just completely blew it in the 9th inning. 5 innings pitched. He is the designated closer, as I do quotation marks, but 18 ERA kind of got relieved of that duty, and I could see him being sent down to Class A as well in the near future once these injuries clear up. So that's it for the Double A side, as we're about to go jump into a Triple A game with the Round Rock Express. And before we jump into that game, we will take a look at the Redbirds' top prospects. Nolan Gorman is the prize prospect for the Redbirds. That's really all they have. They don't have a bunch of solid prospects, as the Redbirds are the AAA affiliate of the Cardinals. On the mound for them will be Darian Gonzalez, who's normally a reliever. He missed all of last year due to an injury, so looking to get up there and make a good 2020 for himself. And on the mound for the Express will be Ryan Hartman, the 9th round pick in 2016 out of Tennessee Wesleyan College. Has not had a good start to his Round Rock season, but he will be taking the mound for the Express. Top of the first now, Jack Mayfield with 2 outs, runner on first, is going to get a perfect hit out to right center. And this ball's just going to keep carrying over the wall. So a 2-run shot in the first inning for Jack Mayfield. The opposite what we saw from the Hooks as the Round Rock Express take the lead early. That's Mayfield's first home run of the season. And it puts the Express up 2-0 as the home crowd is silent in this one. Next batter will be Ronnie Dawson, and the very first pitch Ronnie Dawson sees is the fastball, and he gets a lot of this one. That ball's deep to right field, and that one's just past the right fielder in the short wall out and right. Allows this to be back-to-back home runs. Ronnie Dawson going yard, his second home run of the season, and that puts the Express up 3-0 early in the first. Disclaimer about this ballpark, though: the California and the flags in center field, just ignore them. Next up, Abraham Toro. He is going to swing at his first pitch, though, but we're not going to go back-to-back as Toro flies out to center field, or left field. Top of the fourth now, we see a walk from Toro to put runners on first and second now with 1 out. Gonzalez struggling early on. And then Corey Lee's going to get a pitch he can hit, and he puts this one into the gap between center and right field. That ball's going to go up against the wall. 1 run is going to score. Toro is going to round third as well and score. So now we have a 5-0 lead here for Round Rock. 2 batters later, Steven Wren is going to walk. So now runners on first and second with 2 outs. That's actually going to be it for Gonzalez. They're going to bring in Kevin Herget, who has not had a solid season in his own right, 7.52 ERA. But he is going to get out of the inning as Drew Ferguson is going to fly out to the right fielder as it's a 5-0 lead. Bottom of the fourth now for the Redbirds. They start to pick it up here as we see Jose Guidori get off and single this one into left field. So now runners on first and second with no outs. Nolan Gorman is up next, and he's going to get a hanging pitch he can do a lot with. That ball is gone over the right field wall as it's now a 5-3 lead for the Redbirds. The 4th home run of the season for Nolan Gorman, as the man we highlighted at the beginning of the episode immediately pays dividends for the Memphis Redbirds as they cut this lead to 2. Next up, Adam Austin Dean on a 1-1 count. He's going to line this one to the gap in center and right. Dawson unable to track down this one, and that's a single for Dean. Next up, Edmundo Sosa is going to put this one down the line in left, and that ball is going to get up against a wall. So a double for Sosa, second and third now with 1 out for Jose Martinez, and basically in the exact same spot that Sosa just put it in is going to get a base hit RBI. So now a 5-4 lead here for the Express. Next up, Rangel Ravello is going to strike out. That's a needed strikeout for Harmon. So now it's 2 outs to Connor Capel, and he cannot get out of the inning as this wall is also into the gap in center and right. 1 run is going to score, and then Jose Martinez, who is on first base, is going to round third and score as well. So just like that, the lead for the Express has vanished. Thankfully, Justin Williams pops up to right field, and we're only down by 1. That's going to do it for Ryan Hartman, and now Riley Farrell is going to come in the bottom of the 5th to try to salvage this game. And 3-0 count, he's going to walk Austin Dean with 2 outs. Next up, Souza is going to walk as well. So when we had runner on first with 2 outs, now it's bases loaded, 2 outs for Jose Martinez, and he dribbles this one past the third baseman for a 2 RBI single, as it is now 7-5 for the Redbirds. Ravello up next, 0-1 count to him. This ball's in the gap this time between left and center. Nobody able to get to this one. 2 runs are going to score for him, and this is going to be the last we see of Farrell, as it is now a 10-5 ball game, as Ronald Blanco is going to come in for the Express, as the Redbirds have just exploded late in this one. Connor Capel up next. His first pitch, he sees all Blanco. He is not done. He lines this one into left field. Throw is going to come to the plate. It's offline, so Capel is going to have a double. And then next up, Justin Williams unable to continue the rally once more. And now it's a 11-5 game as the Redbirds have just blown this one wide open. We go to the top of the 6th, Steven Wren. He gets some offense into this one as that ball's hit deep to left center off the wall, the base of the wall. And 2 runs are going to come in for this one. So it's now 11-8 Redbirds in the top of the 6th. Now top of the 8th, Drew Ferguson with 2 outs. He's got runners on first and second. He's going to line this one up the middle, and that's going to score 1 run. So now we have an 11-9 ball game. Anibal Sierra is up next. He's going to walk on a full count. So now bases loaded, 2 outs. And the Redbirds are going to bring in the former All-Star Brett Cecil, who missed all of last year. He's kind of been in AAA rehabbing. And the first batter he sees, Carmen Benintendi. He's going to be first pitch swinging, good pitch to hit, but right at the first baseman. And that's going to end the game for Round Rock. They don't score anything, get any base runners in the ninth inning. So the Redbirds win this on 11-9. Nolan Gorman is your player of the game. And now we are back with the second half of the live comm, this time looking at the AAA stats for our Round Rock Express. I'm going to try to make this half a little bit longer, or shorter, so we don't have a super long video. So let's jump right into it, starting with Nick Tanielo, third base prospect, who is tearing the cover off the baseball here in AAA. A 63 overall D potential. He was a 14th round pick back in 2014 out of Washington State. Don't know if he has a future at the big league level, but it's good to see he's tearing the baseball up in AAA. Next, we have potentially my favorite prospect in the entire organization, catcher Corey Lee, who is hitting 400 through 30 at-bats. He did start the season off in AA, but tore up AA pitching and had some catcher injuries, so he's now up here in AAA, tearing the baseball up early through 30 at-bats. I see him potentially being our catcher of the future. He'd be potential 66 overall, good defensive catcher, can hit the ball relatively well. I know we have some catcher injuries at the major league level with like Drew Stubbs, and we tried Lorenzo Quintana, but I don't want to rush Corey Lee. I want to try to see if he can improve his bat a little bit more, improve some of that vision clutch. But I do see him being the catcher of the future, just being a little patient with him. Former Cal Golden Bear was selected 32nd overall last year, and I feel like he's still got some time. Next, we have Carmen Benintendi, who's hitting 853 OPS, hitting 281 on the year with 2 homers and 10 RBIs. Solid right fielder, D potential 64. I just don't know how much more he will improve, however. Next, we have Steven Wren, another right fielder who's hitting the ball really well, 284, 2 homers, 13 RBIs. Another 63 D potential. I just don't know how much these guys will improve at 25 years old. I would like to give him a shot at the big league level, but I just want to see a little bit more before I give him that call up for a roster spot, especially since we do have Kyle Tucker and the other one's escaping me. Drew Stubbs not Drew Stubbs. Who is the other outfielder? Miles Straw, that's who it is. Good thing we have those two who have a high potential at the major league level. Next, we have Anibal Sierra, a shortstop middle infield prospect, 67 C potential. Could be called up this year to be that bench role, though, especially with Aledmys Diaz struggling. Other than that, he could be trade bait, 67 C potential. Somebody will want to go for that. Next up, Colton Shaver, hitting 333 through 39 at bats. He's kind of all over the place with his stats. He has a D potential and he is decreasing. Interesting that he has a backup catcher, though, so we could use that to our advantage in the farm system, but I don't know how much major league time he will get. Next up, Ronnie Dawson, who's hitting 247 on the year. He's picked up his bat recently, which is good to see, because I like Ronnie Dawson. 66 C potential. We saw him go yard in the episode in the previous game. 62nd overall pick back in 2016 to a $1.056 million signing bonus. So I'd like to see him warrant that signing bonus and give him a shot at the major league level, just because he is young and I feel like he does have some potential out there. Next up, Taylor Jones, the former pitcher out from Gonzaga. He slashed 291, 388, and 501 last year in Round Rock. Only hitting 240 this year, 240, 348, 406. So I'd like to see his slashes improve to his last year's. Next, we have Drew Ferguson, a former walk-on at Belmont, who was with the Round Rock Express last year and hit 281 with 11 homers and 57 RBIs last year. Only hitting 246 this year. He does have 5 homers, so I'd like for him to continue that line he had from last year. I know he can hit the ball well, 65 C potential. His time is running out to maybe make an impact at the major league level. He is on the 40-man roster, and he has already used one option, so something to keep an eye on maybe. Next up, Abraham Toro, hitting 277, 1 homer and 6 RBIs this year through 101 at-bats. A solid corner infield, prospect. He's still got some time to see what happens with him. Next up, Alex DeGatti, a second baseman, hitting only 212 this year, so we start to get into the lower half of the prospect. 62 C potential, can't play another position behind second base. I feel like that could hinder him and his progress. Then we have Jaime Ritchie, who has gotten hurt with a broken ankle this year. Don't know how much we'll see of him this year, so we'll touch on him at a later date. Then we have Jack Mayfield, very interesting, 637 OPS, but is hitting 275 so far this year, and we just saw him hit his first home run of the season. You look at those power and those contact numbers, you expect him to have a little bit more power, and I do think he could help out another player just like Anibal Sierra, who could be that backup infielder in the near future. But I want to see his power numbers improve, or his power stats improve, before I give him a shot at the major league level. I'm trying to be patient with a lot of these prospects in order to not rush them to the major league level. Then we have Chas McCormick hitting 150 so far this year, a 60 D potential. And then Lorenzo Quintana, who we briefly saw at the majors, only hitting 140 through 40 at-bats here in AAA. So that'll do it for our position players. Next up, the pitchers side of things, sorted by ERA. Top of the list, Josh James, because he hasn't pitched a single inning in AAA, but we all know the story of Josh James. We know how much he's struggled so far at the major league level this year. 10.52 ERA. We want to see him improve down in AAA before calling him back up. Next up, Brendan McCurry. He is the designated closing pitcher here for AAA, but his overall isn't decreasing, D potential. Not much we'll see of him in the future. And then we have Brian Abreu, 113 ERA through 8 innings pitched. He is kind of the de facto closer here in AAA. I know it's listed McCurry as the closer, but Abreu is doing a solid job of that. Signed out of the Dominican Republic in 2013. He made his debut last July and put up very solid numbers through 8 2/3 innings pitch. Another player I want to be very patient with, 63 overall, A potential, only 22 years old. I think he can be the help we need in the bullpen, but I don't want to rush him to that level just yet. Next up, Brandon Bielak, 3.57 ERA through a 17 2/3 innings pitched, 62 D potential. Forrest Whitley, our prize starting pitching prospect, is 3.98 this year through 43 innings pitched. Former Alamo Heights High School representative from San Antonio, Texas. He was the 17th overall pick back in 2016. He was suspended 50 games in 2018. So we're hoping that doesn't tank his progress. He has a 68 A potential. If somebody else in the starting rotation struggles, I know Homer Bailey isn't doing so well, but we did just call up Rogelio Armenteros. But Forrest Whitley, I want to be that next guy to reach the major league level. If somebody else really struggles in the rotation, Forrest Whitley will be called up. Next up, Ronald Blanco. We saw a little bit of this game. He's 4.30 this year, 57 D potential. Followed by Cy Sneeze. He's an interesting story. 4.37 ERA. A 61 B potential is at 26, but most of his stuff is improving, it looks like. He was acquired back in 2015 through the Jonathan Villar trade, and he has a little bit of experience last year. Didn't really light the world on fire, but just another player to look out for as we get deeper into the season. Next up, Austin Pruitt, another guy I want to touch on. A 68 D potential, is 30 years old. Former Tampa Bay Ray, was acquired before the season started through trade. And I know he hasn't really done the best for the Rays up in the majors, but I do want to give him a shot in the bullpen really soon, especially since our bullpen is struggling. I'm trying all options up there. But he's pitching 466 in AAA, so I don't want to pull the trigger just yet because, I mean, he's struggling in AAA ball. Who's to say he won't struggle in, MLB ball? Next up, Justin Farrell, who did spend a little bit of time with us back at the majors, so I'm not really going to touch on him a bunch. He really did struggle. Then we have Riley Farrell. They're not related at any sense, who we saw this episode and struggled as well. He's 5.57 ERA so far this year. Then we have Francis Martes, who we did designate for assignment. Doesn't mean I want to give up on him yet. He has a 62 C potential, but I wanted to open up that roster spot for I think Dustin Garneau, the backup catcher right now. So I put him on DFA. He's going to be sent down to the Round Rock Express as long as somebody claims him. And then we have Ryan Hartman, who I touched on earlier. Brett Conine will be called up. We saw Hartman this episode. He really struggled. He is going to be sent down to AA by next episode. So that does it for all of our pitching AAA prospects. And that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode. We actually play we're going to go up to the Yankees as well as the Blue Jays. So we'll see 2 AL East series, and then we'll see the Red Sox shortly after that. So a little bit of an AL East trip. We'll see how we do against some of the better teams in baseball. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in that one. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. This has been Mr. Rob of Franchise Central, and I say class is dismissed.